Hi everyone, welcome. So today we are going to be talking about um today we're going to be talking about all the shenanigans, right? All the shenanigans, all the crazy things that USCIS, ICE, immigration in general are doing to make your life more difficult and to achieve their goal of mass deportation, which again, that is the goal. How they get to that goal is shifting, and it's shifting because they are realizing that it is not as easy as it sounds, right? Even if you want to deport every single person in the US that is undocumented, it takes time and it takes money. Okay, it takes time and it takes money. So if you are trying to do that, you need to figure out what the process is going to be, and that has been the struggle for this administration. So they are going to basically put their little finger on the scale to tip it to their side. So we're going to be talking about the different ways that they are doing that and what you need to know about it, how you can work around it. And if you have questions, you're joining me live, you have questions, please let me know in the comments. And if you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, please also put it in the comments. And feel free to say hi. Hi, Francisca. So good to see you. Remember, ask me questions. Hi, let's get into this. First off, right? They want to deport as many people as possible. And I told you guys, I will keep telling you guys, the best way and the fastest way for them to do this is by putting people in expedited removal instead of immigration court removal process. Okay, those are two different things. Expedited removal basically says we can get you out of the US without you ever going to see an immigration judge. Unless you pass a credible fear interview, then we have to send you to an immigration judge. But if we don't do that, if we don't tell you that you can do a credible interview, if you do not know that you can do a credible fear interview, we can just go ahead and deport you. And we have seen that happening a lot more. So if you are in immigration court proceedings, but you meet the requirements for expedited removal, what we are seeing now is that ICE, the lawyer, right, the court lawyer and ICE, so they're like the prosecutors in the immigration sense of things. So they are now taking steps to make sure that even if you are already in immigration court, even if you already have a court hearing, they are going to try to dismiss your case, because once they dismiss it, you are now subject to expedited removal and they can move forward with removing you from the US, right? They don't have to put you back in immigration court. So that is the shenanigans. Number one is that OPLA, which is again, the prosecuting end of ICE, what they have been doing is someone will have a court hearing, right? You'll have your court hearing, it may be a master calendar hearing, and Oprah will come in and basically say, hey, immigration judge, we don't actually want to prosecute this person anymore, right? We're going to dismiss this case. And if you do not know any better, you're going to be like, yes, I won. My case is dismissed. But here's the trick, right? Shenanigans. The trick of it is once they dismiss that case, now you are subject to expedited removal, and they can pick you up and they can put you through that process. So that's why I tell everyone, if you have an immigration court hearing and you are subject to expedited removal, please make sure you're meeting with an immigration defense attorney. Okay? Immigration defense attorney for your hearing, knowing your options, making sure that if you are detained, that you know what to do, right? Requesting that credible fear interview, knowing what goes into a credible fear interview, and that you have a lawyer ready to go that will fight on your behalf. That is the thing that people do not understand when it comes to immigration court is that just because you're in immigration court does not mean that you are not subject to expedited removal. Okay. Once they dismiss that case, you are now, they can now use that process to get you out of the US. And it's a trick that they have been doing, and they have been using it in every single court that I can think of. There is not one immigration court I can say that, yes, in this court, they're not doing that. They're doing it in every single court. And when the prosecutor, right, when the prosecutor is the one asking for the case to be dismissed, it is hard for the judge to be like, oh, no, we're not going to dismiss this case, right? Most of the time, the judge is going to just agree. And that's what we've been seeing. The judge just agrees to the case being dismissed, and then what follows is the person potentially being picked up the same day as they're walking out of the courtroom. Okay, but there are things you can do to delay that process. Okay, if you find yourself in immigration court, you didn't meet with a lawyer, you decided to go in on your own, which I don't recommend, right? Um, and before someone in the comments says, oh, well, she's trying to push for her business, I don't do immigration defense, okay? But I am telling you that you need to at least meet with an immigration defense attorney before you go into court. If not, have an immigration defense attorney with you, right? So you need to do one or both of those things. Now, if you happen to be there by yourself, there's a couple things you can do. One is to request the judge force OPLA, right? Force ICE to put their motion in writing. This is a big deal because typically they come to court, they're like, Judge, we want to, file a motion to dismiss this case. They can't dismiss it on their own. They have to file a motion. And in some cases, the judge will just accept an oral motion, meaning you come into court, you say, we want to dismiss this case. We're filing an oral motion. The judge can rule on that oral motion without having them put it in writing. However, immigration court procedure requires motions to be in writing and gives the other side 10 days to respond to that motion. So those are two things that can help delay that process. So one is asking for a motion in writing and asking for 10 days after that motion is filed to then respond. Okay. It does not mean that the judge is going to approve your dissent of the motion, right? The judge may still approve the motion. However, right, the judge may still approve the motion. However, you have just bought yourself 10 days to get an attorney, figure out what options you have, prepare yourself and your family for potentially being detained and being removed from the US. So this is a huge thing, right? Dismissing these cases is not typical. Typically, for ICE to dismiss a case, they have to really believe they can't win it, or they believe that the person is better served outside of court. They may qualify for, adjustment of status, but that's not what they're using this for. They're using this to pad up their removal quotas, right? They now have quotas of, I believe Stephen Miller said 3,000 a day, right? 3,000 a day. And they need to find a way to make that happen, and removing people from immigration court and putting them into expedited removal is a way to do that. So that's the first thing. I know that was a long one, but I want to explain it and what you can do about it. The second thing that the administration is doing that is basically going to harm people filing for family, people that are already in the US is the travel ban, right? If you have not watched my video, I believe last week on the travel ban, please go ahead and watch that. I detail which countries are affected and what you can do about it. If you are filing for someone that happens to be on that total ban list, this is going to greatly affect you, right? This is a way for the administration to limit legal immigration, right? We always hear that, oh my goodness, we're not against immigration, we're just against people coming into the country undocumented or remaining in the country undocumented, right? That's always been the thing. However, it is very clear that there is a systematic attack on legal immigration, right? The immigration that you file for, you wait for it to be approved, you wait for the embassy to issue a visa. That is also now under attack because now these countries that are on a travel ban, complete travel ban, will not be able to file for family members. So if, let's say, for example, you have family in Haiti, you have a child in Haiti, and you're a US citizen and you want to file for that child cannot even get an immigrant visa to the US because of this travel ban. You are in the US, you are doing every single thing the way they said to do it, which is to file a petition and then have the child come. And yet, there's a travel ban that stops you from being able to do that. So that is definitely something that is limiting legal immigration into the U.S. They are, and then the ones on the partial travel ban, student visas, temporary visas are really on the attack in those countries, and they may be adding more countries onto that list of either the partial or the complete ban. So we need to, I will update you if that does happen. And then on the theme of messing up people's legal immigration, is canceling parole, terminating parole for people that came here the right way, right? The Biden administration put out a parole program. People came in with that parole program that gave them 2 years in the US, right? Came in on the parole program like you told them to do, legal immigration. And now they are canceling those paroles. And once you get your termination letter, technically you no longer get to keep your work permit. Your work permit is terminated. Unless you have already started the process of gaining status through another means, you are now out of status in the US. Remember, you came in with status under these parole programs, or you had TPS, which is a legal status in the US, temporary but legal status. And those two things are being terminated. So some countries already received notice that once their current TPS and that it is not going to be renewed. Other ones are still waiting to see what happens. So it is an attack on not just undocumented individuals, but legal immigration process. Right? There's going to be delays on applications. There's going to be delays on the embassy part of things. And also, if you entered with one of those parole programs, not only are those parole programs being terminated, but even if you are filing for, let's say, adjustment of status through your spouse, USCIS cannot even approve those applications right now because there is a pause on those applications because they believe there was so much fraud in the process, even though they had to go through a whole screening before they received the parole. But here we are. Again, this is the shenanigans that I'm talking about, is using people that are here, turning people that are here legally into undocumented people. And if you turn people that are here legally into undocumented people, guess what you create? people that you can deport, people that are now subject to expedited removal that weren't before. They were not subject to expedited removal before, but now they're subject to expedited removal because you have taken away their parole. So when I say the shenanigans, these are the shenanigans, and every single thing they're doing is towards one goal. And that goal is to meet their quotas of deporting as many people as they possibly can. That is the whole point. It is not about securing our borders. It is not about making sure that people are coming here legally, because we can see legal immigration being affected as well. So what you need to know is, if you have your parole terminated, hopefully, because I have been telling people this, hopefully you already have another process. Maybe you applied for asylum, so your asylum case is already pending. But the people that are going to be harmed by this are people that do not have anything pending. So you've been here and you have not filed any petitions, any applications, and you have no means of filing a petition or an application. Those people are going to have a harder time with this termination than someone, let's say, for example, that already has an asylum case pending, or that already has an adjustment of status application pending. Okay. All right. And then the last part, and I am going to talk about this part because it does affect everyone applying for an immigration benefit, is now the administration is threatening lawyers. Yeah. So if you're an immigration lawyer, you are constantly being threatened with, you know, being detained or being arrested, because guess what? Apparently, we are aiding and abetting. Yes. As immigration lawyers, doing what lawyers do, which we are tasked with, which is zealously advocating for our clients. Which that's literally our job, is to advocate for our clients, even when, even when we know things are not great or the administration is against our clients. We are still required to zealously advocate for our clients. And apparently, that zealous advocacy is not considered aiding and abetting. And now we are under threat with potentially getting sanctioned or being arrested. And guess what that does to the immigration system? Is now you have people that are going through the immigration process, immigration court, without attorneys, right? We have more immigration attorneys leaving the field because they are scared. And it is reasonable to be scared. Have you watched the news lately? Right? It is reasonable. And we have seen that happen over and over. But I always say, I will be here um, giving you the information. But just know, this is a systematic attack. So if you take away the lawyers that are advocating zealously for their clients, now you have more people going to immigration without representation, which means more people that don't know what they're supposed to do in order to be able to stay in the US, to be able to apply for benefits. You may not even know that there's things you qualify for. Your attorney would know. And one thing I know for sure is that the statistics do not lie. 90% of people that go through immigration court without an attorney get a deportation order. Okay? Over 90% of people that go through immigration court without an attorney get a deportation order. And if more attorneys are afraid to even take on cases, that's a problem, right? That is a problem. And that's going to lead to more people being deported. Again, everything links back to their goal of deporting as many people as possible. So that is everything that is all the shenanigans I want to talk to you about today. I'm just going to run through them again. The first one is expedited removal, where you are in immigration court, and because you're expedited removal, but for the fact that you are in immigration court, ICE is going to ask the judge to dismiss your court case. And then once they dismiss your court case, guess what? ICE can then pick you up and deport you. Because you're no longer in immigration court, you are subject to expedited removal. Shenanigans. So it's basically a whole concerted effort to deport as many people as possible. What can you do if you are in court and ICE asks for the case to be dismissed? Ask for them to put that motion in writing and to give you 10 days to respond to the motion. Now, the judge will still most likely dismiss the case, but then that will buy you some time to make some plans. Okay, meet with an attorney if you don't have one already, but just know there's that option to help you have more time. Second one, the travel bans. If you are filing someone in the country with a travel ban, I am so sorry, but those travel bans, especially the complete ones, are going to affect not only non-immigrant visas, so the temporary visas, but also the immigrant visas. So if you're filing for a family member to come here and get their green card, just know that travel ban is going to also affect that. And then, of course, canceling parole and TPS right into the shenanigans. Because now, once they cancel or terminate your parole, you are now in the US undocumented. And because you're in the US undocumented, now they can put you in immigration court proceedings or make you subject to expedited removal. It is all these things are working together to basically help them reach their goal of deporting as many people as possible. All right. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments. I do see the questions already there. So I will start putting answering those questions. But please ask me questions. Okay. All right. First question, I sent an e-request for my dad's I-130, I-485 that was filed on March 2023. When will I hear from them? It depends. So it depends on how long ago you sent it, but typically within a month or two, you should receive a response for the e-request. Now, the response may just say, we are still processing the application. We don't need anything from you at this time. We will be in touch. Okay, that may just be the response. And guess what? That is a response. Even though it's not satisfactory response, it is considered a response. So from there, what I typically would do is have reach out to a congressperson in your district and ask them for assistance. Especially since you're able to do an e-request, that means the case is outside of normal processing time and they're more likely to assist. So if you do not hear anything in a month or two, reach out to your congressperson and see if they can help move the case along. Okay, just got an interview notice for I-485 before receiving I-765 approval for my wife who came through the humanitarian parole from Nicaragua. Is this a deportation trap? Was told I-765 gets approved first. So here's the thing, right? Could it be? Most likely not, unless she absolutely does not qualify for the I-485, right? Unless she absolutely does not. But here's the thing. I always tell people, typically, right? There's typically, and then there's what happens in reality. Typically, the I-765, the work permit application, is approved before the green card application, right? Typically, that's how it happens because maybe the office has like so much backlog for the green card application that they're not able to get to it until after the processing time for the work permit. So definitely look at the processing time for the work permit. If it's still within normal processing time, then it's normal. Okay. We have seen that cases filed um, late 2024, early 2025 are getting interviews faster than older cases. I will let you know that. So it is, so even though, let me say this, even though it seems abnormal, even though it seems abnormal, I do tell people that typically a work permit application can take up to 8 months or more. So if it's still within that time frame and the local field office is ready to process your green card application, it happens. It's two different offices that handle this. So it's not the same office that handles the work permit application that handles the green card application. So just know that as well. So they're not processed at the same place, and each form has its own processing time and its own process. So you can't really use one to gauge when the other one will be approved. It's really more about the processing time. But I do understand the fear that it could be something else. But again, she qualifies for it. Typically, they will just process that. We just recently had an interview. Client was out of status. They did the interview and we went home. Okay. They did the interview and we went home. My client went home. It's all good. But just know I do understand the fear. And that's why for my clients that are local to me, I typically do go to the interviews with them. Okay. So, all right. This is a great question, Ella. So Ella says, did you see the news this morning for the man who went for an I-130 interview at USCIS, was approved, and then turned over to ICE? Yes, I did see that. And this is not the first time this has happened. Okay. This has happened under the first Trump administration. It has happened under the Biden administration, and it has happened under the Obama administration. So this is not new. But I do want to explain when you would be more likely to be detained at an I-130 interview. If you are in the US and you already went through immigration court proceedings and you were ordered to be deported, if you're only filing an I-130, that typically means that the person does not also qualify for a green card application, right? We need to separate the two. If the person only filed an I-130 and they're scheduled for an I-130 interview, that means they are in the US and they're not able to adjust their status in the US. And that could also mean, so that could mean that they already went through immigration court, they were found to be deportable, but they didn't leave. Or it could be that they entered the US without inspection, without a visa, and now they're trying to go through the process to basically have their spouse file for them and apply for a waiver and all of those other things, right? So a typical case where there's an I-130 and an I-485, which is the green card application, where the person does not have any criminal history, typically does not end up in detention by ICE. Does this happen though? Yes. Have I seen this happen? Yes. But there's typically more to the story than just an I-130 interview. All right. There's typically more to it, and that more can be either the person has a criminal history that makes them deportable, the person already went through immigration court proceedings and was found deportable and they didn't leave the US, or third, the person entered without inspection, Those three things can lead to ICE being involved. Okay. And we have heard stories where the person will go to their I-130 interview, like this person did. And again, part of the shenanigans, right? And after the interview, we've had a situation after the interview where an attorney accompanied their client, and the USCIS officer kept asking like silly questions, just delaying the process because ICE wasn't there yet, right? ICE was supposed to get there at a certain time before they ended the interview, but they weren't there yet. So they kept delaying for ICE to get there. So part of the shenanigans are happening in these situations, but it typically has to do with one of those three things. Okay. We haven't really seen it specifically for someone that, may have overstayed a visa. We haven't seen it specific to that. I will, keep an eye on this particular news story to see if there's more to it or if it's straight I-130 based and the person overstayed a visa and that's why. Okay. And if it's just that, then I will definitely be talking to you all about it. But like I said, those three things are typically what will lead to ICE being involved. Okay. Do you think it's going to be a problem to get conditions removed if you were a visa overstay? So, if you're getting conditions removed, is because you already have a green card, you have a conditional residency. Your overstay does not matter at this point. And if you have a 2-year green card, that means you got it through an immediate relative, typically a spouse, which means that overstay is already waived. Okay? Immediate relatives of US citizens have their overstay automatically waived. So when you go to remove your conditions, that's not even part of the conversation anymore. The conversation becomes your relationship, right? Since you got your conditional residency, what has happened with your relationship? That's what they care about. Your overstay will not come up. Okay. That does not come up with conditional um, removing the conditions. It's the relationship that they care about, and if you have any criminal history and things like that. But the relationship itself is what they care about. And like I said, as an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, your overstay is automatically waived. Just like if you worked without authorization before you got a work permit or your green card, but you're immediate relative of a US citizen and your green card through that US citizen, that is also automatically waived. Okay. So go ahead. Hmm, well, I am so glad I was able to answer your question. So do they go and review overstays? So the new thing I want to I want to make it clear. The new thing about overstays is really just seeing you already have status. You're already a permanent resident, right? You're just trying to remove the conditions. This I'm about to say does not apply to you. But if someone is in the US and they have overstayed, they are probably going to be more of a target now, especially with like everything that has been going on. But if you already went through the process, you already have your green card, that is not going to be affecting you. All right. Is she working illegally after her work permit expires? And if asked if she's working with that, will that affect her I-485 application? Great question. So once the parole is terminated, yes. Okay. Once the parole is terminated, the work permit is also terminated. and any work she does from there is going to be um, undocumented. Okay, that's just the reality of the situation. However, right? However, if you're a US citizen, she's the spouse of a US citizen, like I said to the last person, like I said to Ella, the spouse of a US citizen is considered their immediate relative. Even if they work without documentation, that unlawful employment automatically waived because you are a US citizen. So I want to make that very clear. There's two main things that are waived automatically just because the person that's the petitioner is a US citizen and their beneficiary is their immediate relative. The immediate relatives are parents, spouse, and children under the age of 21 that are unmarried. Okay. Those are the immediate relatives of US citizens. If those people overstay their visa, they work without authorization, it is automatically waived. So that is really important to know. And yes, it may come up at the I-485 interview because on the application, you have to say whether you're working or not. And the officer is going to ask if the beneficiaries are working. And if they're working, typically an officer may not even ask if they're working. Sometimes they will ask because they want to see if the person ever claimed to be a US citizen, right? So that's where that question would go. That's really where the question as far as employment will go when it's an immediate relative of a US citizen, not really whether they qualify because they worked without authorization. Okay. Next question from Instagram. I'm from Syria and applied for asylum in 2015 after the fall of the regime. Will my asylum case be dropped or is this still going on? My asylum still pending. So your asylum case is still pending because you are physically in the US. Travel ban only affects people outside of the US. But if you are already physically in the US and you already have your asylum case pending, it will continue pending. They will continue processing the application. It may, it is taking quite a while to get an interview. You filed in 2015. That's 10 years, right? That's 10 years that you are just waiting for an interview. But just know travel ban does not stop you from having an interview or being approved. Okay. The travel ban is more for people outside of the US. So let's say, for example, you're outside of the US and you are at a refugee camp and you're trying to be resettled into the US. That's not going to happen, right? Because of the ban. However, if you're already here, you can still apply for asylum. That is one of the exceptions to the travel ban. Okay. So if you have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. I am here for you. It's just, there's a lot of shenanigans, there's a lot of things going on, and you just need to be aware of them and be prepared for them. Oh, and before I go, I want to plug an event that I am speaking at that I believe if you're watching this, you're going to get a benefit out of. It is tomorrow. I know it is tomorrow, but I have to let you know about it anyway. So this is it. It's an immigration seminar where we're going to be talking about your rights and not just your rights. We are also going to be talking about the different immigration benefits that may be available to people. We're going to be talking about, family-based immigration, employment-based immigration, business immigration, and of course, deportation cases and all the things that are happening with USCIS and ICE, embassies. So if you want to join, the link to join is in the comments. no, not in the comments, in the description to this video if you are on YouTube or um, Facebook. Yes, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, it is in it's like the first link in the description to the video. You can register and join us live. It is myself and two other amazing immigration lawyers, and we are going to be presenting things and answering a lot of questions. So please feel free to join us. It is June 21st, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and it is on Zoom, okay? It is on Zoom. It was intentional to put it on Zoom so that people can join. And also, if you're not aware, people are afraid to show up to things in person. And people are afraid to show up to things in person, and we understand that. I understand that. I always tell people you have the option to come to my office or do a phone call or do a video call, because I understand the fear, and I understand that we have to do everything possible to protect not just our clients, but also protect clients. We're protecting their families as well. So this is all on Zoom. Please join. The link is in the description. You do have to register ahead of time because, Zoom is a weird place where people can come in and do weird things. So we do ask that you register ahead of time. And then also let us know if you have questions ahead of time. Please send it, right? Please send it to me. You can DM me on Facebook or Instagram, or you can send me an email. So feel free to do that. But yeah, that is going to be what I will be up to tomorrow. So a lot of talking, a lot of answering questions as well. All right. Great question. Yes, I do. I will find it in as a comment on this live when we're done. But yes, I do have. So the question is, do you have a video to prepare for the I-485 interview on what kind of questions we will be asked? So yes, I do have a video. Just know this. I will say this. The I-485 interview is technically also an I-130 interview. So do not focus just on the I-485 questions, right? Review the form I-485. Is anything that has changed, updated with the officer at the interview. But the main focus of the interview, because a marriage-based case, is that the I-130. The I-130 is the main focus, because the I-485 cannot be approved unless I-130 is approved. So I do have that video, I will link it, but just know the main focus is going to be on the I-130 for your interview and not really the I-485, honestly. Like I said, we had an interview recently. We went in there, the main questions were about the relationship. It was after the officer has gone through all the relationship questions that they had that they even got to the I-485. So just know the interview notice is going to say I-485 interview, but both of you are going to be interviewed either together or separately. And the focus is going to be whether that I-130 is going to be approved. Okay, because they don't get to the I-485 unless they have enough information to make a decision on the I-130. So I do have a video. I will link that video. Oh, I am so glad you find these lives informative. That's really the point. I tell people I am not, you know, I don't do immigration defense work, and this is my my way of giving back as much as possible to the community, because there's so much information, there's so many things going on. Not everyone can afford an attorney, not everyone can really make out the time to see an attorney. So having a place where you can ask, the basic questions. Again, I'm not your attorney, so you need to have a detailed consultation or strategy session with an attorney to get your specific answers, specific questions answered. All I can really do is give you general information, right? Here's how things work, and here's what will happen in this situation. But being it, sometimes that's all people need, right? Sometimes all you need is that basic information to then make a decision whether you need additional assistance or not, or whether that is enough for you. Okay. And you will be surprised. Like, I do get people that tell me, you know what, that video you did answered the question that I've been just wondering about. And that makes me so happy. And that's why I will keep doing these lives until, or unless the administration takes away my license. So there's that. There's that. So they keep us immigration lawyers, but there's a service there. There's community that need the assistance, and that's why I became an immigration lawyer specifically, right? I did other types of law before this, and I chose this, right? It wasn't like, oh, you must be an immigration lawyer. I chose to drop other areas of law and just do immigration for that reason, because it matters so much. So I don't see any other questions. Please, please, please join us. Register for the event if you are interested. And remember, register ahead of time. The link is in the description to the video, and you will be able to ask me, and like I said, two other amazing immigration lawyers questions on that date. All right. So tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I should mention that 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be covering basically all areas of immigration law, so family-based, business, employment-based, and of course, immigration court, ICE, USCIS, all of those good things. So please feel free to join us. I did put that back on the screen so you can see it. Feel free to do the thing with the code. Again, if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, you can see the actual flyer. If you're watching on Instagram, so sorry, you will be able to see what I'm talking about. But we are doing a seminar, immigration seminar tomorrow. It's on knowing your rights, knowing immigration things that are going on, right? And how to prepare yourself for all the shenanigans and all the unpleasantness that's going on right now. All right. So thank you all so much for joining me. I truly appreciate you all. If you have questions, you're watching this on the replay, please go ahead and put them in the comments. If you want a personalized consultation, best way to do that is to go to my website, lilylegal.com. Click on contact us, and you can see my calendar, and you can pick a date and time that works best for you. I have 2 calendars on there, the free sessions and a paid session, so you can choose which one works best for you. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining me. I won't be here. No, I will be here next week. Never mind. Never mind. I won't be here on the 4th of July. I had to think about that. But next week is not the 4th of July. So I will be here next week. So feel free to join me then as well when we do a roundup of all the immigration things from June. Okay? See you guys.